this world it's getting more dangerous. There's no question about it in my mind. What I did in the book as well, I'm actually going through all the various industries and sectors, and also looking at government and all the various areas. If you look at the Future of Life Institute, they're very concerned about lethal autonomous weapons as well, obviously nuclear and all the other things as well, or biological warfare. All of these kind of things could be empowered by smart technology.
Hey, it's Vinny. Welcome to Unlatched Mind. My guest today is Dr. Jacques Ludik. Jacques' a smart technology entrepreneur, an author, AI expert, founder of several companies. He was gracious enough to give me some of his time to discuss his new book, Democratizing Artificial Intelligence to Benefit Everyone. It's a deep one. It really is. I mean, he's really taking a look at smart technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, where it is today and where it's going. But more importantly, how it's really going to affect humanity. And sort of, we had this sort of dystopian discussion as to all the bad that could potentially lie in the future with AI and human-machine symbiosis and things like that. But overall, he's pretty optimistic. You'll hear this in the conversation. He's overall very optimistic. He's proposing what he's calling a massive transformative purpose for humanity, which is it's an enormously lofty goal. It's got some pretty cool objectives and stuff. But again, this one was a really hard one to really get, to really break down some of the discussion points in an hour. We really needed more like 10 hours. But anyway, let's just jump in. I'll give you Dr. Jacques Ludik. Jacques, welcome to the show. Appreciate your time today. Hey, before we jump in, maybe just a quick background on yourself and who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So, thanks. I love your thinking here, and I love the context that you're going to provide, that you've provided here. It's going to be super interesting.
Cool.
Just quickly on the background, I've shared as well, you can see it on my LinkedIn, jacquesludik.com as well. I'm a smart technology entrepreneur, so I've been in tech pretty much my whole adult life. Well, even when I was at high school, I did computer science, and I was kind of interested and got my first computer when I was at high school and middle school almost. And it was fascinating just to play with this and see what we can do. So I really went into computer science straight away, and that's been kind of, my life has been pretty much focused on that. And for me, I did a Ph.D. in AI, artificial intelligence. I discovered AI in the late 80s, and I did my Ph.D. in the early 90s. It was still winter period, very interesting time still. We're still exploring. It was still not that popular necessarily. As a matter of fact, at that time, there was a lot of rules-based systems, and they talked about expert systems. And I think machine learning was just getting back into the mix of things, the neural network type of approaches. But that was the kind of approach that intrigued me from the start. So I really started zooming in on that. Although I was a researcher, a lecturer at Stellenbosch University before, I think after my PhD, about 5 years, still doing this. But my interest was in the whole spectrum. I was always looking at AI as a toolbox. It's a smart technology toolbox, and you can use it for various things. And the theory interested me. I loved mathematics and applied math and physics and those kind of things. But for me, it was always about the applications, where I just saw this incredible, powerful technology and tool that you can do so many things with. And I was kind of 1 foot academia, 1 foot in business. And then late 1990, I made 89, I made the move. I need to say, now I'm going to go into business. I want to apply. And I appoint my students in my first company, Ceasing Systems, and it was fun and games. We wrote a lot of the software ourselves because it was not like open source during that time. And as a matter of fact, when GE acquired Ceasing Systems 14 years later in 2011, they did a due diligence, and like 99% of the code was just proprietary. So it was not, we were not using any open source libraries. It was like I think the 2010s onwards that exploded a lot more.
Right.
But anyway, so I started as an academic, become a smart technology entrepreneur, and learned a lot about how to apply it. So you want to conquer the world. You just need to see, how can I use this to improve business processes, or how can I increase the revenue or productivity of a company, etc. So, and Seasoned Systems really focused on more the industrial space. That's why GE acquired us eventually. But I was always kind of looking at, there's two worlds where you can apply AI. It's the consumer-facing world, where you deal with humans, and then there's the industrial world, where you obviously apply this to improve processes, to make sure that equipment is running properly, to get the most out of your processes in production and so forth. So that was great. So that kind of laid a foundation. I've seen how AI can be applied around the globe, and after the acquisition and spending time at GE, learned a lot there as well. I was contemplating, okay, great. I see this explosion in AI and in smart technology in the 2010s, all these incredible valuations and what's happening here. And I see also, we saw with firsthand the impact already in the 2010, so the 2000s to up to 2010, what we can do with the technology. But what I realized is also with deep learning, and especially I would say from 2011 onwards, that whole toolbox strengthened tremendously. So there's so much more opportunities to do more things with natural language processing, with speech, with vision, all of those kind of things. And that opened the door for even more applications. And that's why I've started my next company, Cortex Logic, which became part of the Cortex group. I also realized here in Africa, we need to build capacity. So I founded the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, built this African AI community, and was trying to replicate things that I did with C-Sense as well. But I think what I also learned, and I think it was clear from the AI-driven platform plays, that to build, if you want scale, proper scale, you need to build AI-driven platform businesses. And so what basically happened with Cortex, we've transitioned from an enterprise AI play to AI-driven platform play. And I've started to focus more on health, mental wellness, financial wellness, those kind of applications. And we've got now spin-out companies called Vive for teenage mental health, and we've got Journey looking at holistic health wellness, and there's a few other things as well. So it's pretty exciting. Pretty much just an entrepreneurial journey so far. Obviously, with the book, I wanted to communicate. This is kind of a long-term dream for me to communicate what my massive transformative purpose is and what I'm trying to achieve with technology. And I think things have matured as well over time. I didn't, with my first AI companies, I didn't really think so carefully about what is a real purpose. Is it a massive transformative purpose? And I would say 2015, 16, I more crystallized that more clearly for myself. And basically what you see with democratizing AI to benefit everyone, and specifically you see at the back here, shaping a better future in the smart technology era. I just realized I'm in this field. How can we use this technology to create that better future for as many people as possible? And especially here in Africa, you see a lot of poverty, and you see a lot of people that struggle. You see a lot of people that's doing extremely well. So there's a lot of, you talk about in the US, you've got various polarity there, but you've got the same situation here in Africa, where there's great wealth, but there's also a lot of poverty that you need to deal with. And how can you use smart technology to actually improve that whole situation? So that's in a nutshell. I can obviously dig into a lot more.
Yeah. No, that's a great background. I appreciate it. No, and one of the things that kind of resonated with me when digging into your material, you and your background in general, you do I think for me, I would describe you as, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's like a passion for technology and also a passion for good, doing
Yes.
well. I mean, I feel like you very, it seemed to came across very philanthropic because I
Yeah.
look at these, I look at a lot of what's happening and where technology is going, and I immediately think, okay, bad actors, cyber attacks, the hacking, eventually the hacking of not only our personal data, which is happening all over,
Yeah.
financial,
Yeah.
identity, all sorts of things like that. But then eventually hacking of our own biology, right?
Yeah.
You talk a lot about eventually, and this is no doubt very, very, I mean, we're
Yeah.
almost instrumented in a sense now with our
Yeah.
phones, right?
Yeah.
But I saw a talk you had done, and it wasn't mind blowing to me because I've been following this for a while, but it really resonated the way you articulated it. Where eventually our human bodies are going to be fully instrumented, meaning maybe nano devices in our bloodstream sending real time data about our blood lipid levels, how the heart rate. Our doctors will know or will know. I think you had mentioned. You said this is your quote. Something we'll know 10 years prior if we're going to maybe get cancer or not. So that, as cool as that sounds, both from a from a how do we just it's for the betterment of humanity, right?
Yeah.
But also I guess get a little bit scared of what those bad actors with then, because they're not going away, right? The
No.
bad actors are not going away. But how do we? I mean, are you? And I think I said in the notes I had sent you, utopia or dystopia, right? Is there,
Yes.
and so do you have concerns as much as and where you see where we're going and where we're headed, or are you optimistic?
100%. So actually, I start the book also talking about runaway train, where it's almost like driving a car with just a steering wheel, and you've got pretty much not control over the car
Yeah,
effectively. And
it's
it's,
a good analogy.
Vinny, I see massive dangers, and that's part of why I've written the book as well. Is to, I think we are on an incredible educational journey as a civilization. And together we've created a civilization, intellect, and we need to, if we want to improve civilization intellect, we need to get smarter on the individual level,
Yeah.
and cooperate and collaborate, not work against one another. And we need to think carefully about, when you talk about bad actors, it's this world it's getting more dangerous. There's no question about it in my mind. What I did in the book as well, I'm actually going through all the various industries and sectors, and also looking at government and all the various areas. If you look at the Future of Life Institute, they're very concerned about lethal autonomous weapons as well. Obviously nuclear and all the other things as well, or biological warfare.
Yeah.
All of these kind of things could be empowered by smart technology, and with knowledge, just science. It's just using science and knowledge to create more risk. So, and you talk about, I think, also you think about cybersecurity. That could potentially be an incredible problem for us, as we instrument the world, as you say. So I'm concerned. So we need to think about regulation. We need to think about, especially on the application, obviously, application of smart technology, just not AI, not only AI, but I think there's a bunch of other very powerful technologies. There's quantum computing, there's obviously blockchain technology, and the combination, the fusion of all these smart technologies is creating a very dangerous world. So, and we need to get, we need more wisdom and responsible humans. As well. So how do we accelerate that? So for me, character building, being responsible, education is unbelievably important, I think. It's not just about certain knowledge, it's about values, all of those kind of things. It is super, super important. So I'm with you. I think the world, we can easily end up very dystopian. Obviously, as a smart technology entrepreneur, I've got a more positive mindset, because that won't help me to think negatively about things, because I want to change things. I want to create solutions. So I have to be in a mindset where I sketch the outcome. That's why when I talk about a massive transformative purpose for humanity, I think if we don't have a purpose or a hope, and I feel almost like, just in my short life, I feel almost like the 80s, 90s, okay, 70s, I was still maybe too young, but 80s, 90s, I could sense there was a bit more optimism. And I feel like maybe with technology, with the internet, even though we've created a lot more positives, people in general are better off. I think we've also created a very dangerous world where people struggling mentally as well, where they're struggling with meaning. And again, that goes back to maybe also the structures that we had in the past. There's a lot more uncertainty. And I think our human brains struggle to cope with uncertainty. So, yeah.
For sure, yeah, and I think I put that in the notes as well. I think I had, and I say this a lot in a lot of my discussions, because I think if I look at, I look at us as humans. I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of years of us, evolving to understand how to survive. How important tribes were, because our tribe, helped us survive against other tribes, and so we become very tribal. Or even the food we eat, like everything that our reality is today, took a really long time to get to where we are. And then you go back 20, 25 years, internet blows up, social media,
exactly.
Machines getting better at pretty much everything, at least brain power wise, almost everything. And I don't think we know how to. I don't think we know how to, like you said, I think, depression's going up. You mentioned, I want to get to this maybe even offline, but you mentioned the work you're doing with like teenage mental health.
Yes.
That's a big thing that I'm seeing. My kids are a little too young right now, but I have a lot of friends, the social media thing, that instant, that dopamine hit of a like or a not like, or the immediate, the ability to someone to insult someone across the globe and have that person across the globe get crushed and not, and become bulimic. It's just like, it's almost like hacking, and not almost, it is hacking our brains. I think it's hacking our social interactions. And so, but the reality is, as I think, as you would agree, it's not going away. So being pessimistic and negative and trying to keep it away from everyone. And, I have friends, kids aren't going to look at screens till they're 18. I was like, I don't know if that's a winning strategy. I think we have to, it's just like, hearing bad words or seeing bad movies. I think you got to build the right foundation and let them slowly acclimate, and then work at it, I guess. But and in your world, technologies, there's probably a lot of good AI applications to try to right, and that's, I think, where folks like you and other entrepreneurs in this space could really help.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned. And I do want to get to, you say because your book's fascinating, and I did not get to the whole thing. I skimmed it.
It's 26 hours of you. I'm actually making a lot more available now via podcast and also via YouTube. But yeah, so
okay, yeah. I was going to say that, having like clips. Because I know you have a couple of YouTube channels. Clips. Yeah,
I'm at the moment busy with that, so it's going to be just opening it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of meat there. There's things that I want to discuss and explore, because even when I listen to it and read it again, and I want to engage with more people on some of those topics, because it needs to be discussed.
There's so much there. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's commendable. I mean, you could take like one chapter, and that would be another person's whole book. But before we jump into sort of, I really want to get into what your massive, transformative purpose is, what you define that to be, and then, man, Sapiens, that's blowing my mind. So I want to get into that. It's really cool. I don't know why Hollywood hasn't taken that idea yet. So you might want to reach out to them. But we'll get into that in a second. But you mentioned, we need. This is what always hurts my head. We need, more education, absolutely. And then you said responsible humans, right? And you said values and things like that. And I couldn't agree more.
We need tools to make sense of this world, especially now. We are overloaded with information.
Right. Information is not the problem. It's what we do with it. I mean, just look at any, and I'm here in the U.S. I mean, there's plenty of data on COVID, yet you have, right? I don't even want to go there, but you have literally diametrically opposed viewpoints on every topic that comes up, every topic, and the confirmation bias is through the roof, and it's not from a lack of information. I mean, so I guess not taking like the U.S. example, and you go to the entire world, and we have many different worldviews, many different sort of bases by which we think what is good, what is not good. How do you think? is that a blocker to this? Is that just yet another challenge? You think as we all get more and more educated and the world becomes just, we start to just travel more and more and we become more homogenized, that'll eventually go away? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Vinny, yeah, I think it's fascinating. Even if you look at vaccines and stuff, and you've got, well, there's a broader thing there, but I think it's also maybe a specific example.
Yeah.
Just last weekend, I listened to Pfizer's CEO podcast, just I think with Lex Friedman. And then I also listened to Peter McCullough with Joe Rogan. Then you listen to...
Yep. Just listen to that.
I think Dr. Moss, well, the guy was just giving the antidote. I think Sam Harris was saying, if you want to antidote for that brain damage from Peter McCullough, then listen to this guy. Anyway, I actually listened to all the different perspectives, and it's part of that sense making that I'm referring to here.
Right.
If you listen to all the opinions and trying to steelman certain approaches, the different patterns, and then you can also clearly see why people say various things. So why Peter McCullough is saying this, why this guy is saying it, why Fauci is saying this, etc. And one needs to understand their context as well. And I think, and I can understand if people listen to an educated person, it sounds good, very articulate, everything, then that person is very believable. But still, they've got a certain, there might be a few things that they say, a number of things they say is absolutely correct in terms of in touch with reality, but everything is a little bit colored in, tainted, because every brain, every human being sit with their own narrative in their head in terms of how they understand the world. There's a lot of biases, as you say. And so it's very important to understand that and not just, and be open-minded. It's almost like the scientific method where you keep an open mind, where you want to make sure you can't be closed-minded, I think, in this century. It's got to be so important to be as open-minded as possible. You got to have structures, you got to have principles, you got to have, I think, because that creates, it's almost like with entropy and order. I think it's important to create order in your thinking as much as possible, but you should be able to adjust as needed all the time. So you've got to calibrate. And I think that's pretty important. In terms of the broader question, I think we've created this, obviously with the internet and the connectedness, just the fact that we can sit here on two different continents and we can talk about these kind of things. And we can share thoughts and so forth. We're creating a world that's obviously hyper-connected. You're going to get people that's more like-minded as they interact with one another, or at least understand the different opinions. So I think in 100 years, 200 years, depending on how we shape it, we're probably going to, even if there's diversity, I think there's going to be better understanding for various viewpoints and so forth. And I think we will get to that common values, because I think it's absolutely doable. And I know we're going to talk about responsible AI and ethical AI later on, and the different interpretations of what is ethics and what is common values. But I see humanity, civilization right now is almost like in kindergarten, still in terms of maturity and wisdom. We still need to figure out a lot of stuff. And maybe we need to slow down. Maybe that's part of the reason. I think you're 100% right, even in your notes, when you talk about, are we ready for this technology change? And maybe we need to slow down. I know we would like to go as fast as we can, but if we are not on the right maturity curve, from a character perspective, from being responsible, from a wisdom perspective, then it's almost like we're not ready. We're not ready to tap into the full potential of the technology, and we need to maybe just take it a bit slower. I do think, I know currently if you look at the world, if you look at the US, and you look at all this heavy polarization, and a lot of countries are looking up to the US in terms of democracy and freedom of speech and all of those kind of things. And you see the US or people struggling with sense making, you see cancel culture, you see all these kind of things, or just gender issues, all sorts of issues, and people struggling. I think it is problematic, but it also shows where we all are as humanity.
Yeah.
What I love about the US is making it so visible, and it's part of freedom of speech. And just so we need to be honest with ourselves. Where are we? So let's be smarter in terms of our education, and really build a better civilization from the ground up. So that's why I think for our children, the education on that front is incredibly important. And I think we're busy with a massive experiment with humanity and with our teenagers and kids and children as well. And we need to be smarter in terms of how we use technology and how we do things. We can go into that a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you articulated, I think, the root of the problem and a potential solution when you went through that vaccine example you gave. Because I listened to the same Dr. McCullough podcast with Rogan, and the whole time very convincing, very convincing.
Yeah,
and then I listened to another couple podcasts that analyzed that, and they broke it down very because 100%. And then you start realizing, oh, okay, well, he's a very established, very reputable person. Or doctor, and he had
a
lot of
guy,
absolutely. If you just hear him talk, he's just a human machine. I mean, just his recall, and I mean, I was like, wow, this, is he reading from something? Because it's too right. But then you start realizing, okay, he's got a very hard conservative backing, and or background, and again, nothing wrong with that, but that's why every data point he brought up was leaning towards one perspective, right? And then I heard another, so there's elements of truth in there. He had his own biases, his own agenda in a sense. It might even have been subconscious, but and then you listen to the other podcast and you kind of, and I think that's a great thing about our today technology in general. You can find 35 podcasts, on any one topic, and then you could take an average of them all and get the real picture. It's not just MSNBC or CNN, Fox or BBC. You get a lot of options nowadays. But what worries me is, I think you and I are probably data geeks, and we just love this stuff, and probably can do it all day long. But I think the average person doesn't have that kind of time. And so whoever's going to get, whatever media outlet will have the whatever, the biggest backing or the biggest whatever it might be, or loudest voice can sway a lot of humans, and and that's what kind of scares me. But maybe that goes away too. I think cable and the big time news media is sort of, I think they're slowly dying in terms of where they used to be, and the internet's just like, hey, people talking like you and I right now. People just click a button and hear
democratizing.
Right. So in that way, I'm optimistic, because the more folks like you and I and all the other ones do this, the more we're just all saying, oh, that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. I didn't see that on the Fox News or the MSNBC or the CNN, because they, they're brought to you by Pfizer commercials come up after they say you should get a vaccine. It's like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Did you literally just pay for that? So
exactly.
So it's tough to not, but I think, I don't know. It's just sometimes tough to be optimistic. And the average person's like, "See, I told you," and they double down, and they just continue, to rattle their echo chambers in their head. But and that kind of going back to my notes I sent to you is like, do we need a common value system, and do we need to just come together as, hey, we're all different here, but there is one giant spinning ball called a globe, and we live on it. So
exactly.
And I thought with COVID, to be honest, sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking, and this made me a little bit less optimistic, because I always said, well, when aliens come, and if say aliens came and they were attacking us, the human race would just unify because we had a common enemy. And then COVID came, we had a common enemy, and it didn't really happen the way I would hope. We kind of, at least here in my country, in the U.S., we tripled down on our division. So.
Vinny, I maybe just want to make a brief comment on that. And I think the problems that we face as civilization goes across boundaries, borders now. Climate change, we talk about lethal autonomous weapons, pandemics, bio-warfare, all sorts of different things. So it's very difficult to tackle this with nationalistic kind of approaches. And then obviously within the country, you already see polarization. So we have to work together. And you're right. I feel it's a bit disheartening to see that here we've got a global challenge, and is this the way we handle this? There's some good stuff as well in terms of what we did as, I think.
Sure.
If you look how fast we produce vaccines and all sorts of type of solutions and try to share it, and although there was probably not optimal in terms of how vaccines are being shared worldwide, it's still, there's still a lot of positives there, but as you rightly say, it's still problematic just to see. This is just a little measurement of where we are in terms of humanity, and I think we've got still some work to do.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get more positive as we go through. I promise.
Yeah.
Look, these are all, I think, challenges, not problems, right? Just like
No,
every
true.
day we wait. You know, you made the entropy sort of analogy, and I think that's
100%.
a perfect one because, I mean, nature and life by its left to its own devices is just chaos, right? And our job is to organize the chaos day in and day out, whether it's thought chaos or physical chaos, whatever it might be. So, I look at that as just along the way, not sort of in the way.
That's right.
So, like I said, your book is how long did it take you to write that, by the way? I'm curious. It's a massive undertaking. I mean, this is 2 decades? Or
Well, no, do you know what happened there? It was like with COVID-19, it just exploded. So I used the time with family
Oh, nice.
and so it's basically a 2020, maybe a little bit of 2020, probably a year and a bit, but it was a lot of hard work. It's obviously a lot of discipline, up early in the morning, think about things. But there's a lot of, it's probably the previous 4 or 5 years was I've gathered quite a bit of information. I was thinking about some of the topics, but things crystallized more in 2020, and it's given me opportunity to really zoom in and say get it done. And the fact that it's fairly big, it's a lot of pages. I wanted to cover all of those kind of things as well. So for me, it's, and I had to think about the title as well, because the title, it goes more to what's the purpose, what I'm trying to do here, what I think is important, even in 10 years or 20 years time, or 30 years time, this will be incredibly relevant, the broader message. And I would say some of the chapters, especially chapters that talks about beneficial outcomes for humanity, or what does it mean to be human in the 21st century, those type of things, those kind of questions. And I was seeking answers, and I've got answers from so many different places. So it was kind of a study and sense making for myself, but I think it's also some sense making that other people can tap in and then try to interpret and make their own sense of that as well. So but I wanted to share a bit of just what AI's tremendous impact on society, and even in the business world as well, because that was my experience. So I relate back to that. So a few chapters deal with the pervasive impact of AI across everything. But the question now is how can we make sure that more people benefit from the use and applications of AI technology?
Yeah.
And I think that's we know the tech giants, a lot of the big companies are becoming AI-driven platform businesses, and with that you can scale and you can create a lot of tremendous wealth for a few. So the question is, can we democratize that as well? And I think at the same time, we've got now blockchain, and which is a decentralization technology, and it could be a vehicle to help democratize. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, so I think you probably already touched on a lot of this, but you call it what's sort of needed is what you propose a massive transformative purpose for humanity. And I kind of put in my notes, whoa, because that's that's a bold, that's like, So explain really what you mean by that, and maybe, again, I think you touched on some of it already, but what do you propose there?
Yeah. So I think I was just thinking we are, yes, we've got nations and so forth, but I think it's very important that we need to think about the big picture. Even if you look at Elon Musk, he's trying to think about multiplanetary species and all sorts of big questions, and those questions that you ask. But I feel we need purpose, we need hope, and we need a common purpose. And the reason I'm talking about MTP, massive transformative, because I'm applying this to myself. I don't know if you know Peter Diamandis of Singularity University and a few others. They talk about massive transformative purpose and the importance of you need to have that for businesses if you want to scale, and so you want to make sure it's transformative but also massive. And the massive is also where you get the scale. But I think for humanity, we need to think about this at scale as well. So what I define as a massive transformative purpose is we need to evolve civilization and humanity. I'm stating specifically evolving a dynamic, empathic. So we need empathy. We need to be dynamic. So it can't be just stagnant. We need to be able to change quickly and adapt very quickly. Obviously, we want to build a prosperous society. And I think the world is better than 100 years. More people has got more access to more things, but there's also a lot of polarity and also, you've got a lot of rich people and you've got the middle class being hollowed out. So we clearly, on an economic front, struggling, but we want more people prosperous. And you can define what you mean by prosperous. It's not just in a monetary sense. So we want prosperous, thriving, and we want a self-optimizing civilization. So it needs to self-optimize. And to optimize, you need to think about what are we optimizing for? Are we trying to maximize quality of life? Or are we just about GDP? Are we just about, so we need to think about what is it, how can we maximize quality of life, meaning of life for as many people as possible? We live on this planet for a short time. How can we, if we've got goals that we try and optimize, that's more looking at that. I think that is more inspiring future. It's a future that you want to say, I want to wake up. It's like Elon Musk is also saying, I want to wake up. I want to be excited about the world and what I'm doing. So for me, it's about, we want to make sure that it benefits everyone in sustainable ways. Clearly, it needs to be sustainable. And we need to do this in harmony with nature. We can't just do what we've been doing last century. So we've got to be smarter. We know about climate change and so forth. So that's the broad one. But then I divide it into 4 big pieces. And then I've got specific 14 NTP goals that complement the United Nations SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals as well. But just to just summarize it very quickly. So on a systems level, I'm saying that we need to drive beneficial outcomes for all life. And I believe, and I think this is where it's maybe debate, and we can talk about that. I think it's very important that we think decentralized. Even if you look at the human body, I think we operate in a lot of systems going on in the human body that's decentralized as well. So we need to be adaptive. Our body is very adaptive. We've got an immune system that's, if there's something going wrong here with my knee or something, then the focus is trying to solve that part. We're very adaptive in healing and so forth. We've got to be agile. We know that. We need to think about our economic, social, and governance systems. So all of those systems, we probably need to re-engineer that. And what I'm really behind, I think it's very important to reward active participation and positive contributions to society and civilization. But then we need to define and agree what is positive contributions and so forth as well. And then we need to keep peace and protect humanity from any potential harm in elastic ways. Again, I'm talking about being dynamic around that. But we've got to respect individual freedom and privacy. That's why I've got a problem with, if you look at the East and China, if you think about digital dictatorship, they're on a path to digital dictatorship with that authoritarianism. And where you don't respect individual freedom and privacy. So we need to get that balance. So I think if you look at the East with collectivism, clearly we need to think we are still part of society of a global community. So I think we need to think about the bigger picture. We need to think collective as well. But we need a balance between that and individualism. In Africa, they talk about Ubuntu as well. So I think there's a fine balance needed there. So we've got to be more elastic around that. So I think we can do a lot with our systems and have a clear purpose of where we want to actually drive. What is the kind of systems that we want as well. And then obviously, just to finish off the rest of it, quantity is for me important through using and democratizing knowledge, science, and smart technology and other tools in optimal human-centric ways. I think it's very important to be human-centric. I worry about a world that's not where tools dictate, technology dictate. We've got a great opportunity where technology can adjust more to us, especially with AI, with machine learning. We've got mouses and we've got all sorts of different things, but we've got now technology that we can interact more naturally with technology and it can maybe understand us better. and so forth. But anyway, so human-centric, I think it needs to be based on wisdom, good values, ethics. We need to dynamically solve problems. We need to create opportunities in abundance, and we need to share that benefits with everyone. And then for me, the kicker is really quality. We need to maximize quality of life. Community building, I think the future should be more local, more human. We don't have to go back to the tribes, but if you think about when we started off as humanity, Homo sapiens, it was more kind of very tribal, but 150 people in your local community and stuff. But obviously now it could be more virtual, it could be digital. There's like-minded people across the globe, so it could be in the metaverse. Well, that's a big other discussion as well. But I think virtues and character strength development, I don't think we put enough focus on that. It's almost like we leave it to maybe some of the parents, or we do a little bit at school, but not really. We're not equipping people with sense-making, well-being, meaningful living. What does it mean to live meaningful? So I think we can do a lot more there. So I think for me, that's very much part of that purpose. And then the last thing is just, we obviously want to live in the best possible livable habitat. And think about for all living organisms and the environment and our place in the universe. So that's in summary the massive transformative purpose. There's obviously a lot more to dig in if you especially look at the goals. So I think thought about what are specific goals that we haven't defined that's complementary to the SDGs. That's specifically looking at this MTP for humanity. So yeah, this is where it comes in.
Yeah, I mean, it's lofty goals. I mean,
Okay, now,
just an understatement of the.
I know you're going to say, "Are this guy realistic? What is going on?"
Well, I don't think. I mean, people that change the world aren't ever thinking realistic, right? They're not. So no, I mean, you got to think nuts, and then there'll be 3% of it that actually is implementable in the near future, and then that opens up 20% of the next part of it to be implementable. I mean, that's just how really big change happens. And so, no, it's pretty neat. And now you're also, so you propose Sapiens as sort of you quantum. I mean, I read that the summary was, a decentralized, human-centric, and user-controlled AI-driven super platform. Yeah. Again, I said, whoa. And then, and and at first I wasn't quite getting it. Then I listened to a couple talks that you had given it, and it really started to resonate. It made a lot of sense. I mean, it really, really did. And
yeah, I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, no,
I'm still exploring as well. And as more I talk to people as well, I'm calibrating my thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, because I think now I sort of read that as, and I want to ask you to explain it in a second, but like, what does that mean tangibly? Does this mean that we have little AI processes running on our phone, in our pocket, in our brains, in our houses, in our car, and it's just they're all sort of synced to be our little personal AI agent that, or maybe even with Neuralink, they're in our brains. Like it's all right, because I think eventually there's going to be that symbiosis, right? At some point, we'll talk about that later, but. Yeah. But I guess before we jump into all that, just Sapiens in general, what do you think of the future look like?
Yeah, Vinny. So I think, do you know what? I'm actually with like current business initiatives. I'm building little building blocks. When I talk about VEEV, it's a teenage mental wellness companion, 24/7 mental wellness companion for teenagers. Or when we look at Journey Wellness, that's more for everyone. And it's not only looking at mental health, but it's looking at total well-being. Those are almost like little building blocks experimenting how AI-driven platform plays. So I'm busy with AI-driven platform plays. It's similar to what, if you think about Amazon, Netflix, Google, Facebook, a lot of these companies, and there's a lot of others in social media, that will platform plays. And so I know exactly what you can do. You can obviously build recommendation engines. You can also create psychological control vectors, similar to what Facebook is doing. So I can see where you can control things. And we're also busy with future cities where we think about community-based, basically almost like Sapiens, but more focus on community-based super app for individuals that's looking after their needs within a community as well. And you can look at it holistically, financial wellness, health wellness, but you can look at security, all sorts of different things. So with Sapiens specifically, and this is, and I think we can turn. For me, the concern is always who's benefiting from this. Obviously, clearly, we are benefiting from Google, from all the services because we give our data for free, but now the data being monetized by the tech giants or the AI-driven platform players. How can we turn this around? Given that we've got blockchain technology, we've got obviously AI that can operate on your phone, everywhere, in your house, in a car, everywhere. So we're anyway moving towards the intelligence of things. We talk about the Internet of Things, but the intelligence of things, where you will have compute everywhere and intelligence built in everywhere. So we're anyway moving towards that world. What we need is almost like, I know there's one of the billionaires that said they want to build the anti-Facebook or it's more kind of a decentralized or different type of platform. What I see with Sapiens is an opportunity where we can define the whole architecture, the nature of the whole system, to say we want to empower individuals, communities, people on the individual community or group front to actually monetize their data and services. And you can obviously look at families, you can look at virtual groups, companies, communities, cities, city-states, smart towns, digital nations and beyond. Maybe the future, we'll see how that all turns out in the future. So instead of having AI, because there's AI agents sitting in the platforms and trying to control you, if you've got an AI agent that's looking at the entity, and it could be an individual, it could be a community, it could be a family or whatever, and trying to say, I want to optimize for that entity. And for me, there's a broader thing here. It is really about, if you think about life-wide learning, if you think about decision making, if I've got almost a companion that supports me with sense making, trying to say, for instance, with the vaccines, I've got something that's helping me to form proper balanced opinions, almost like helping me with steel manning certain opinions, try to educate me and also understand where I am on my maturity curve in terms of sense making. Obviously, you need quite an advanced AI to do those kind of things, but we can start building those kind of things. We can already build practical applications where you can have a companion. So I'm busy building this, but what I would like to do is to use those kind of building blocks and turn it absolutely around, where you say, let people benefit and have full control of their data. So that when I look at data, I think it's very important we talk about cybersecurity and those kind of things as well, but you want to have building privacy and governance. You want protection for your data, and obviously, if some other companies are using your data, maybe you're getting monetized, but you should be aware of that and how it's being utilized. And this is again where ethical AI comes into play, trustworthy AI, where regulation comes in, and maybe you need to prove that you are doing things in a trustworthy way. But with Sapiens, you've got a whole system that's designed from the ground up to work like that. So I think we can go a long way. It's going to be very interesting if you think about personal AI assistants and wellness companions. What does it look like for a smart town, for a community? What does it look like for a family? And then once you've got these digital kind of assistants, you can say, who should they interact with? You can try to optimize things for a family or for a community based on this as well. So I think there's incredible potential to use AI for good in so many different ways. So education is for me huge. So I think if you look at the positive applications of AI, education, healthcare, is huge. Those two are. That's why I'm pretty much focused on that. I've invested in another company called the Student Hub, where they're also building AI-driven digital platforms and stuff. So
When do you sleep?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're actually not even human. Maybe I'm actually talking. You've already created your digital twin, and here you are. That's
Vinny. So it's not, there's so much to do here. I obviously have to look at my own well-being as well. So
Sure, but you're so inspired by this work. I don't feel
no,
like you
I'm
consider
passionate. I feel passionate
this
about it.
doesn't drain you. This I
No,
feel like this energizes you. So yeah,
no,
that's the way it's
no,
supposed to be. That's exactly
yeah,
what.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned these AI companions. So
Yes,
you said that a lot, and a lot of your notes had said that. And I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean in a practical sense? Are these
yes.
literally? So yeah, is this? I just look at these as like they're little my own custom little processes, right? Because everything's we're talking about. I always like to boil this down to folks that are really basic. I'm not an AI, ML, or deep learning expert, but software is just software. Is just it's just code running on hardware. It does still need electrons and gates to open and close. We only have binary event. So at the basic principles of just how software turns physics into things and information,
Yeah.
it's sort of simple. Then it rolls up to be very complicated. But so is this just my own personal software that understands me, that's just collecting data from all my input channels and giving me feedback loops? Like maybe it's not all figured out, but what does this mean from a practice? What does this mean at implementation level?
Yeah, so this is, Vinny, this is where it gets very interesting. So, about, if you look at even some of the, um, if you look at some of the new big neural networks that's being created, you say it's for a vision problem. You can actually take that trained system. It could be GPT-3, whatever system, and then you can train that on. You can customize it for specific use cases to do very specific things within a specific context, where you train it on, say, your own data and so forth. And you can calibrate that. Because basically how these systems work, obviously there's lots of layers of abstraction that's being created here. And with all the lower layers, you actually get a lot of the figuring out of, say, it's a vision problem or it's understanding of concepts and so forth. You've got neural network and machine learning systems that can actually do a lot of you can train the systems on a lot of people's data, anonymized, but then you can apply it locally as well. So you can apply it on your phone. You can apply TensorFlow, for instance, on the phone, on the edge. So that is not a problem. So what I'm thinking about here is again back to having full control and to be able to calibrate the goals of the specific. You need full control. I don't want a tech giant or some other company, because they're just optimizing for more clicks, more likes, more.
Exactly. Right.
And just to break it down a little bit more, in terms of the AI-driven platforms that we are developing, the personal companions, there's AI on multiple fronts. There's the human-computer interface side, where every click, everything that you do generates data.
Yeah.
So you generate lots of data there. There's a recommendation engine that gives you information, and you act on that. But then there's a lot of data mining happening on the back end, where it works with the data that's been generated from the app, but it also integrates with other data.
Yeah.
It could be your interests, it could be your claims data, it could be your health data, financial data, all sorts of other types of data. And so we're building systems. If we've got other types of data sources, we bring that into the mix as well. So you build kind of a 360-degree view of this particular individual. And say it's for teenage mental health, we can build a wellness profile based on all sorts of different information. And say, for instance, it's like with Journey Wellness, we not only with the AI assistant and the way you interact with the app, but as I've mentioned, you can link to insurance data or claims data, other types of information, and you can also get more information, or your wearables. I've got a smart watch here, so I'm getting more information. You can get information from there. So the question is, how can I utilize that data and then calibrate the way it's being optimized? So obviously you need a user interface where you can say, I want to define the goals, and then it could be across so many different things. It could be, say, I want the system, the companion, to support me in decisions, to figure things out, or just on an educational level, or just sense making, or if you think about character strengths, building virtues. If you've got specific goals in terms of well-being, that's not just focused on maybe what you eat and drink and who you talk to, what you engage, what you read, what you watch, all those kind of things, but also in terms of character, where you can reflect and those kind of things. So it could become, I think that the space there's so much data that could be utilized for your own benefit in proper ways. And obviously you're not going to get it right from the start, but you can slowly but surely you can build a system like that where you unlock your data, you've got control of the data, you've got control of the AI assistant, and you can control your digital connections. That's why with Sapiens, I specifically refer to those three pieces. And currently it's not clear. Your data is everywhere. When I go to my regular visits, say annual visits, I always try to get all my blood tests and all those kind of things. But the doctor has got a copy. I've got a copy. My bank's got my financial data. Not all of it, because I'm at a few banks. My investment portfolios in different places. It's kind of all over the place.
Right.
So I think just this opportunity to have a bit more control, and I think it's going to be needed. And then
this is exciting, because I'm as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, if I started the business tomorrow with this in mind, I could see, well, first of all, a huge market. Obviously you do too. This is why you're doing it, but also for good. And just thinking through practical applications. I mean, now I'm thinking, okay, how do we consume information and get ideas and get thoughts? Well, I sit in front of a computer. Many of us still have PCs on our desk. Okay. Maybe it's a browser extension, because you'd have to own the operating system to do everything. Maybe you can't, maybe you're not going to beat Microsoft at the beginning, but maybe it's your own browser, and you install the plugin, and it's watching what you're watching. And so it can at least understand what you're consuming. So when an anti-vax thing or a pro-vax thing comes up, maybe there's some dialogue or some like personalized text that's popping up, like, well, did you really, you might want to check this or that, and it kind of can maybe deflate some of the, excitement bias you might have by seeing that. Or on your phone, you have a plugin installed, and when, a teenage girl from across on Facebook insults you on Instagram, hey, you look fat, it sends you a bunch of like, well, why was she saying that? Maybe, it sends you links to say hurt people, which I love that line, It's like, I just can see a ton of applications where, and I have no idea if this is even what you're thinking, but I could just see it have to be in all the ways we interface and get data. It would almost have to be understanding, listening, saying, Vinny, I know you're really susceptible to those kind of jokes, or you don't like so maybe know with this person. Like I could see, I can see some really cool applications there.
And even if you think about just monetization, you currently do have some browsers, some third-party browsers that's coming out to try and democratize, we just say, advertising, for instance. We know that Google and Facebook and some of these companies make their money with advertising.
Oh, yeah.
And if you say in a Sapiens decentralized system like this, the monetization could be via advertising as well. You can be selling anonymized data, and especially if you've got lots of people in this community, it's like the whole world or the Western world, whatever. That's where it's anonymized, but it's controlled, but you share in the benefits of, we know the wealth being created with advertising for Google and Facebook and many other companies as well. There's incredible opportunity to tap into that. So that is just a starting point. So obviously there could be all sorts of transactions. And this is why I'm also talking about if you've got transactions between hyper-connected users or businesses or service providers via smart contracts in a Sapiens decentralized, distributed ledger-based ecosystem, then you've got opportunities to monetize further. It's not just advertising. It's not selling anonymized data or services, but subscriptions, transactions, and you can get a little bit of the fees on transactions as well, where maybe some of your data and some of the things are being utilized. So I think it's incredible opportunities, and you can obviously take it from individual level to virtual groups to smart towns to obviously for businesses as well. A business can have its own AI system as well. Anyway. And then you've got, if it's like decentralized autonomous organizations as well, where you've got systems that are trying to optimize while you sleep. It's because it knows your goals. It's trying to figure out where's the opportunities for you, and it will sell data maybe there if you give it approval. We can create a world where that's just great for everyone. So
Right.
anyway,
No. Yeah, this is so interesting. Yeah, you said the sleep thing. I mean, if again the data that's available right now that like parents don't have, schools don't have, where I gotta go back to the teenage girl thing because it's such a big thing. Just no hearing my
yes,
friends talk. It's like if that person went through X, Y, and Z websites that day and their friends said X, Y, and Z and they slept and because we're instrumented, it realized the heart rate was elevated. The person did not get into REM sleep for 3 days. There's already
exactly,
data saying what you saw is damaging your body. How do we
100%.
address that? And it really creates that holistic picture of how do we adjust to be happier and optimize for and then what and then just kind of continue and just
Absolutely.
some exciting possibilities there. Neat, very neat
I
stuff.
want to I want to focus my mind on there because I
Yeah,
just see opportunities, and we need people to just show the way. So
yeah. Huh.
anyway,
I send you my resume. This is exciting. This is really
That's
neat.
fine.
There's so
Yeah,
many
no,
ideas, and it's obviously it's coming or it's here, and
yeah,
but it's the angle to do good and to just
yes,
have that be like the paramount
exactly.
objective, and it seems like you absolutely do so.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess we've gone almost an hour here. What? So
We could
I
probably
know
go for
it's like we
a
didn't.
number of hours.
It's unbelievable. I don't. So either listeners are either asleep right now or they're like so excited they just can't. They won't sleep for a week. So because I don't think there's
Yeah,
any middle ground. Like the talk was okay. I don't know.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
probably. Um, so
Yeah.
I guess what's next for you? What I mean, where I mean, you said you mentioned a bunch of these companies that you're creating. I
Yes.
mean, what do you think the
Yes.
next tangible? Hey, we're ready to deploy X, or I think in 2 years we'll have Y, or what is tangible next
No,
steps? You
no.
think?
I think I try to not. I think where I am right now in my life, it's all about. I want that kind of freedom to explore and learn as much as possible. For me, it's I want to make better sense, understand things better, and then obviously with things like Sapiens, for example, I think it's an incredible opportunity to help shape, make a little contribution to
Hmm.
shape us in the right direction, learns from other people as well, implement ethical AI, even in the things that I'm busy right now. So what I'm doing right now. I've got a few business initiatives going on that's pretty much 100% in line with AI-driven platform plays. The next step beyond that would be a Sapiens. So what I'm doing is basically I'm already engaging with a lot of folks in the US that read the book. There's one guy is AI Economic Development Corporation, and they want to engage and they want to work with Sapiens. They want to help, and I end the book where I'm specifically saying in terms of Sapiens.network, this should be a global. This could be an open source. This shouldn't be. This doesn't have to be like I'm doing with other businesses where it's fully controlled by myself and a few shareholders.
Right.
This thing could be embraced by humanity, everyone. So and we can design it. It's almost like with Ethereum or some of the things where you just open it up, and you
Yeah.
try and attract the best talent in the world and build things like this. For me, I have to frame things within technology is fantastic and everything, but meaning of life for me still family, good human centricness in terms of being wise and character building and those kind of things very important to me as well. So specifically, so if we can use technology to create that better future, I want to do what I can. So I'll spend probably quite a bit of time on these kind of topics and maybe write more books on this. I'm already building out. I've just started a podcast, YouTube channels, and that will be just my way of my vehicles to just start
Yeah.
communicating. But I want to learn more, interact with more people, share more of this, get more like-minded people behind this, kind of create a movement
Yeah.
around this. So that's the big picture. I think that's great. That motivates me. And in the meantime, I'm learning so much by building businesses where a lot of the components that I'm talking about here are being implemented. And
Hmm.
a lot of these opportunities that I'm busy with could be billion-dollar business if it's just successful in terms of international rollout. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, so keep on building, keep on exploring, keep on learning, keep on sharing, and making my little contribution to the world to help shape that better future.
Very cool. No, it's exciting stuff. It's I mean, it's fascinating, to be honest, and I think it's. So I feel a little more optimistic now. So I'm gonna check the box of utopia, not dystopia. I think it's possible.
I talk about in chapter 10 about beneficial paretotopia. They talk about a protopia where it's just one every day a little bit better, and a paretotopia is where you share. Where you're never going to get probably a equal world where everybody's getting the same. It was kind of a socialist world. Because there's always people smarter, working harder, doing a bit more, and they need to be rewarded. And so
incentivized.
We need to calibrate just capitalism. We need to use some of the things that's working, just calibrate that, and then create that better future.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you feel a bit more optimistic.
Yeah. No, it's folks like you and others that are trying to do, realize as bad actors, but try to, But it's like anything else, we'll close with sort of this. Like if you go back to it's 50 years, and you told my parents or grandparents, hey, someday this cash stuff is not really what you're going to use. It's all going to be on some computer in some quote unquote cloud thing, right? Yeah. Which is really just other people's computers somewhere, and your money's not going to be anything real, just some number, which is really a series of bits on some computer somewhere. Exactly. They'd say, I would never do that. They're just going to steal all my money. No way. It's so insecure. Yeah. And guess what? Online banking and digital currency is actually sort of working, right?
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Things get hacked and people steal, but for the most part, I can't remember last time I said, how much is that? And I had to reach into my pocket and, 1, 2, wait, and then give them the little circle things we used to call coins. Like, it seems so antiquated at this point. But anyway, well, Jacques, thank you so much. This was awesome. I appreciate your time. I know you're, it goes without saying how busy you are. So I do appreciate your the 65 minutes you gave me here. But excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate it. And it was lovely talking to you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Best wishes for the festive season and Happy New Year. And hope 2022 is going to be great for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.